Hello and welcome once again to Straight Bat, my weekly blog where, as the title suggests, one comments with a straight bat. Let's focus today on the battle for Bihar. Now, electoral politics in Bihar provides a much needed dose of oxygen for a state which has been on ventilator, to be honest. For the last 12 months, Bihar has lurched from one crisis to another, from reverse migration to floods, from economic distress to all kinds of natural calamities. Few other states have suffered the kind of catastrophes that Bihar has since the start of the year. Not surprisingly, a recent opinion poll, for example, showed that this time unemployment is a major issue in the elections. The state's youth unemployment figures are among the highest in the country and rising, which is why some would say that the assembly elections almost come as a relief for the people of Bihar after a troubled lockdown period. In a state where people love their politics, a tightly fought election in Patna is a bit like what the rising Sensex is to Mumbai. It creates a real buzz or a hawa in the air. And you can see this in the manner in which Biharis are coming out at rallies, virtually abandoning all the COVID protocols. Elections excite in a way the Bihari mind. So that's not surprising. And yet, in a sense, this is a very different election, because to my mind, this election marks the end of an era of Bihar politics, of highly surcharged politics that began in 1990. Rewind to 1990. That was the year which saw a tectonic change in Bihar's politics. It was the year when Lalu Prasad became Chief Minister of Bihar for the first time. He was not just a magnetic mass leader, but he became a symbol of the empowerment of the backward castes and thereby transformed all political equations in Bihar. When Lalu Prasad arrested L.K. Advani in October 1990, as Advani's Rath Yatra was wending itself through Bihar, he in a way gave the politics of the state another dimension. Mandal was now pitted against Kamandal, and a Muslim Yadav alliance was cemented that has proved very durable. 30 years later though, Lalu is in jail. And while Tejasvi Yadav has certainly managed to, it appears, capture the imagination of the younger generation of Biharis, the fact is he still doesn't have Lalu's charisma. On the other side, what the BJP has rather skillfully done in this period is co-opted the Mandal forces without really compromising on their core Hindutva brand. And that is what perhaps places the BJP in this election to be in pole position to become the single largest party in Bihar for the first time. In a way, Bihar is perhaps the last Hindi heartland bastion left to conquer for the saffron surge. In every other state in the region, the BJP has already had either a chief minister or has been a principal player in politics. In Bihar, on the other side, the party for the longest time played second fiddle to the Mandal assertion. You can go back even to the 2005 election. The BJP only got 10.4% vote, barely squeaking into double digits. By 2019, the BJP's vote share had doubled to 24.42%. So, you can see the remarkable rise of the BJP in recent elections, and it culminates last year in the Lok Sabha when the BJP won as many as 39 out of 40 seats in Bihar and was leading the NDA alliance in 223 out of the 243 constituencies. Interestingly, in this entire period as the BJP has emerged in Bihar, it hasn't been able to project one of its own leaders. Instead, it has relied on the Mandalite leaders, in particular Nitish Kumar, as their face, a more sober, some would say a less pugilistic product of the Mandal revolution. But all that is changing in 2020. While the BJP leadership has re-emphasized that Nitish Kumar is their chief ministerial candidate, the shift in balance of power is obvious. In 2010, for example, it was Nitish Kumar who was leading the alliance and striking out against Lalu Prasad's so-called Jungle Raj, and that became the calling card. He was seen at the time as Shushasan Babu, as he was called. Now, a decade later, the Shushasan Babu image has taken a hit. This no-nonsense administrator image has clearly taken a hit. There have been a series of controversies. You might remember the Muzaffarpur child shelter home case, for example, all of which have taken the gloss of Nitish Kumar's image. Also, his image as a so-called champion of secularism has taken, of course, a major hit. Far too many political U-turns and a growing disconnect in a way with the masses have left Nitish, one would believe, a slightly forlorn and vulnerable figure in this election. You know, just a few years ago, Nitish Kumar was projected as a potential national leader, a challenger to Narendra Modi. Today, the skyline of Patna is dominated by Modi. And it's very, very clear that even if the two leaders are going to hold rallies together, the overarching persona of brand Modi will dominate. It's clear the rules of engagement in the BJP-JDU alliance this time. Mr. Modi is the big boss. Nitish is a regional player. A Center for the Study for Developing Society CSDS survey, post-poll survey in 2019, in fact shows that more than a fourth of those who voted for this NDA combined only voted because Mr. Modi was the prime ministerial candidate. In fact, 64% of Biharis said that they wanted Mr. Modi as prime minister. So his popularity was very, very high in Bihar. In Bihar, Mr. Modi combines what I would call a uniquely Moditva identity. He is seen as a Vikas Purush by some, a Hindutva hero by others, and he's also got an OBC lineage. Where other state leaders have remained trapped in a way in their rigid caste identities, Mr. Modi today is able to convey the impression that he has a cross-caste, cross-class appeal in Bihar. And yet, interestingly, the chemistry of Modi has its limits when confronted with the politics and the arithmetic of caste. And we saw that in 2015 when Nitish Kumar and Lalu Prasad Yadav aligned, they were able to sweep the elections despite the so-called chemistry of the Prime Minister. And that is why I think that the BJP knows that they still need Nitish Kumar, which is why the Prime Minister has no option but to hold these rallies with his one-time prime adversary. Which is also why the BJP is conscious to broaden their coalition. They have included Mukesh Sahni's Vikashsheel Insan Party. Now, this is the party of the Mallas or the fishermen caste of Bihar, and they are quite influential in several segments. So, the aim of the BJP has been, like in UP, to try and create a non-Yadav caste base, social engineer it, while also holding on to their traditional upper caste. That has been the BJP strategy for Bihar. To my mind, therefore, in this election, the BJP is banking on what I would call Moditva plus politics to offset what is an obvious creeping anti-incumbency in the state. There is a growing sense, and anecdotally one sees it, of fatigue, dissatisfaction, and also in some instances anger against the Nitish Kumar government. And I think that is the big worry that the BJP has at the moment. So the BJP is attempting in this election to retain Nitish Kumar within the broader NDA fold, but also at the same time slowly distancing itself from Nitish Kumar. In the process, I believe that the BJP is engaging in a dangerous game of political brinkmanship. At one level, you allow a Chirag Paswan-like leader to emerge and chip away at Nitish Kumar's image. Look at how Chirag Paswan does his politics. He says, Modi, मैं मोदी का हनुमान हूँ, मोदी मेरे दिल में है. And while he says that, he keeps also attacking Nitish Kumar. So what the BJP is trying to do is slowly downsize Nitish Kumar and make him completely dependent on the BJP. It is a chess game. ये शतरंज है. The aim is somewhere to checkmate Nitish Kumar at one level and thereby over time ensure that even if a BJP JDU or if a JDU BJP government comes to power in Bihar, sometime over the next 5 years, the BJP wants to take it over. Because as I said, this will be one of the last bastions that the BJP has to conquer. They want to ensure that sooner or later there is a BJP chief minister of Bihar. That is the politics which is being played out. Let me leave you in a way with a postscript. And the postscript is this. This is the era of super overs. The Indian Premier League has been dominated by these exciting super overs. Now, who is to say that the Bihar political league won't throw up a super over if the contest gets closer like we saw in Maharashtra? There is a remote possibility that pushed to the wall at some stage and Nitish Kumar could explore outside opportunities like an Uddhav Thackeray did. The question is, who will be Sharad Pawar of Bihar? Can a Lalu Prasad play that role? And the question is whether Tejasvi Yadav has the maturity to be able to forge some kind of a broader anti-BJP alliance. These are all questions that are blowing in the winds of Patliputra at the moment. And I don't want beyond the point to speculate, because one thing I have learnt about Bihar in particular, इस स्टेट में सब पॉलिटिशियन जो है ना शतरंज के खिलाड़ी होते हैं. So who will checkmate whom, we will never know. आगे आगे देखो होता है क्या. Thanks for watching.